Good evening, everyone, and welcome to night number 14 of my 31 Nights of Horror series. Tonight I'll be talking about my number 18 favorite horror movie of all time. But first, a little background. Back in the early 90s when I was 13 or so, I happened upon a movie on PBS that, even though I only caught 10 minutes of it, scared me to death and stuck with me for the rest of my life. The scene I caught was of a man walking down a long driveway when all of a sudden, a thick fog rolls in. Ghostly sounds begin manifesting around him as he is blinded and choked by the fog. I quickly turned it off after that scene and didn't even watch the full movie until about 10 years ago. It freaked me out that much. As the years went by, I thought of this scene all the time. I used to bring it up to friends when we were talking about scary movies, and nobody knew what the hell I was talking about. With only that one scene in my memory, I had little else to go on. There was a time I thought I might have even dreamt up the whole thing. But around 2010 or so, I managed to find a forum online that talked about obscure horror movies. And when reading a thread about British television horror from the 80s, I finally tracked it down. The name of the film was The Woman in Black. Before I get into the plot synopsis, let me first get this out of the way. Yes, Hammer Films did produce a remake of this movie in 2012 with Daniel Radcliffe in the lead. You are probably very familiar with this particular film. However, I feel the original 1989 television movie is the superior film, and for nostalgic reasons, holds a very special place in my heart. The Woman in Black is a 1989 British television movie directed by Herbert Wise and starring Adrian Rollins in the lead. If you have seen the recent Chernobyl series, you may recognize Rollins as Nikolai Fomin in that. The movie takes place around the early 1900s and follows Arthur Kidd, a young lawyer, as he is sent by his firm to a small English coastal town to settle an estate of an old widow by the name of Alice Drablow. When he arrives to the town, he finds that the local townspeople are not very forthcoming about the estate, and some are downright rude and put off by his questions. When he attends the funeral of Mrs. Drablow the following day with another local lawyer, he notices an old, weary woman standing at the back of the church. She's dressed all in black. He finds this odd as nobody else is in attendance besides the two lawyers and this woman. When the service is finished, they leave the church and attend the burial. He again sees the woman in black in the distance. He asks his companion who the woman was, and the man is startled by the question and tells him that he didn't see anyone else at the burial. A short time later, a delivery wagon drops its lumber by accident and cripples a young gypsy child. Arthur is able to save the child at the last minute, but later wonders if the appearance of the woman in black was a harbinger of this potential tragedy. It seems as though this small town has a very high child mortality rate. But why? After this event, Arthur is taken to the estate he needs to put in order. The manor, called the Eel Marsh House, is located right on the coast, and the only way to get there is to travel along a causeway that is only crossable during the low tide. If there was ever an emergency at the house during high tide, it would be impossible for help to get there, and the victim would effectively be trapped until the water recedes. The rest of the movie follows Arthur as he experiences many ghostly encounters and increasingly terrifying happenings around the manor, all the while trying to put the estate in order so that it can be sold. The film is masterful in its tension building. You never know when something paranormal is going to happen, so you are always sitting at the edge of your seat. As is usual, I don't want to give anything away here and encourage you to grab a drink, turn off the lights, and experience this movie as soon as you can. It has only been released on VHS in Britain in the 90s, and there was a single DVD release in 2000 that is now out of print, so it might be a bit hard to track down. But if you don't mind the quality, you can find it on YouTube in full, and I will put a link below to the playlist. Unfortunately, it has been cut into 10 parts, but at least there are no watermarks or other distractions. You might find it surprising that I rate this higher than A Nightmare on Elm Street. You might find it even more surprising that I have actually only seen this movie twice all the way through. The second time was today, before I started making this review. In my opinion, it is just that good. It may even rank higher on my list next year. I hope someday Arrow Video or some other studio will remaster this and re-release it with some extras. It really needs to be shown some love. So that's about all for my number 18 pick. Join me tomorrow for my number 17, and until then, keep it sleazy.